This is Microcampus. 14 to 16 students going outside of their bubble to explore in a different side of China. A small village called Xizhou, directly translated, the Happy Village. Here, we will stay for 4 weeks, 28 days. During this life-changing experience, we must choose a topic that we find interest in and research about it in Xizhou. For me, this topic was farming. I had chosen farming because whenever I think of a rural place, one of the first things that comes to my mind is farming. When I got here, I only slightly changed the direction that I was heading in with my topic. I wanted to know the process of farming before I came here, but after talking to different people, I noticed certain differences that occurred with farming as a whole over time. This caught my eye and I decided to do more research on it. I spent more time finding out how farming was different 20 to 30 years ago and why things have changed. As I moved forward with this topic, I began thinking of what my main topic was in farming. This was when I started to do some brainstorming, and in the end, I decided on, in order to understand farming in Xizhou over time, one must consider the process of farming, the supplies used to farm, and the organization of farming in Xizhou. There is a certain process that must be followed for planting any crop. The two crops that I am focusing on are rice and garlic, and how the process changed from the past. Rice is planted in late March or early April, depending on the family. Before planting, however, they must spend weeks preparing the soil. This includes getting rid of any kinds of rocks or roots in the land, then loosening the soil. Then, if that family has a cow or a pig, the feces of that animal can be mixed into the soil to provide more nutrients for the plant. If not, they can buy fertilizer from the nearby store. After the rice is planted, they cover the rice seedlings with a plastic covering that acts as a makeshift greenhouse to keep the rice nice and warm. Afterwards, they can relax and use the irrigation system already in the fields to water the crops weekly. During this time, however, they still have to spray the crops with herbicides and pesticides to make sure that their crops stay healthy. The rice is harvested in late August. For garlic, it is planted in late October. The same thing must be done with the soil before the garlic can be planted. However, the farmers can rest until around March and April. During March, the garlic sprouts are ready to harvest it. However, at this time, the bulbs are not ready to harvest. Instead, the bulbs are harvested in April. Garlic is actually a newer crop in Xizhou region. Before, people planted different crops like broad beans and rice. However, these crops did not get them as much money. Now, more farmers have switched to garlic, which earns them a lot more money. The most drastic change of the process of farming over the years is instead of using cow or pig feces to fertilize the soil, many farmers also use different herbicides, pesticides, or fertilizers to help grow their crops and make it easier on them. There are different things needed to farm. First of all, farmers needed to have different kinds of tools for preparing the soil, planting the seeds, and harvesting the crops. Then they also have to have the seeds, and they also have to have different chemicals, like fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides to keep the crops healthy and strong. When preparing the soil, a farmer would usually use 3 tools. The first is a hoe, which is used first to roughly break the soil down into smaller chunks. Afterwards, a tool with a flat metal end and holes in it is used to make the soil even finer. Finally, a rake is used to make the soil nice and fluffy. Although technology has advanced enough for people to use machines to get the work done, the soil in Xizhou is too soft and unfit for using machines. Instead, everything is done by hand. After the soil is prepared, the seeds are planted. Unlike before in the past when seeds were all natural and organic, something that I was surprised to learn here is that the seeds were mainly all genetically modified down in Sichuan in a place called Puxiong. The seeds were then sold to the people who were selling farming supplies here. The genetic modification ensures that all the crops will grow to about the same height, unlike before, so that they will have a predictable crop yield. There are also different fertilizers, herbicides, and pesticides that have been invented to make sure that the plants remain strong and healthy. 20 to 30 years ago, these things weren't invented yet, and it was harder on the farmers. The organization of farming here in Xizhou is not as simple as it sounds. First, one must understand that although the field looks like one big plot of land, it is actually separate families who own a small portion of that land. The land is then rented out to other people who make their living through farming. These people plant garlic in the fields because garlic is a big money-making crop. Usually, one family would rent 10 or so families' land to grow the garlic. The other people who rented out the land will hire day workers to help start the process of planting the crops and preparing the soil and harvesting the crops. In between, there isn't a lot of labor needed to be done, so day workers are usually not hired. Afterwards, the garlic sprouts are sold to people who take the garlic to sell in the market. Later in the year, the actual garlic will be harvested and exported to different provinces in China like Sichuan, or even foreign countries. Overall, my time in Xizhou learning about farming was something that I had never done before, and it was an interesting process. I learned about the different supplies needed to farm, including seeds, tools, and fertilizers. I also learned the process in how garlic and rice is planted, tended to, and harvested. I even learned about how farming in Xizhou is organized. I also learned a lot about what had changed over time and what had stayed the same, from 30 years ago until now. What I have taken away from this experience is not only the knowledge of farming, but different life skills like communication and learning how to cope outside of my comfort zone. Overall, I believe that Microcampus and this inquiry project was an amazing experience that helped me change and mature as a person.